Ancestry ThruLines can feel like a magical shortcut to your family history. But what if they're pointing you in the wrong direction? I've seen it happen more times than I can count. You log in and see that bright green potential ancestor, and it's easy to think, well, Ancestry may know something I don't. But here's the thing. ThruLines doesn't confirm anything. It guesses based on public tree with a little input from genetic matches. And if those guesses are wrong, you could be climbing the wrong family tree for years before realizing it. So today, I will show you how to tell if a ThruLine is leading you to a real ancestor or just recycling someone else's mistake. So here's the problem with ThruLines. They are not pulling from a master tree. They cobble together bits from public user trees, some well-sourced, some wildly wrong. And if one cousin guessed on a great-grandparent and published it, ThruLines grabs that and treats it like gospel. But when those guesses are wrong, you could be tracing the wrong ancestor, collecting the wrong records, and telling the wrong family stories. And heaven help you if you disrupt someone's reality with an unexpected twist, only to discover that twist wasn't there. So now that you know the risks, let's learn how to spot connections and whether they're real. Now, there's a printable version of this checklist that will be linked in the description box below if you want to follow along or save it for later. So step 1, examine the data. Start with the centimorgan numbers. Matches that have more than 15 shared centimorgans are less likely to be false positives. If everyone in that ThruLine group down at 8 or 10 centimorgans, that's a big red flag. It might just be coincidence. And if you don't understand what false matches are, be sure to check the link in the description box that tells you more about them. So examine how the matches relate to one another. Use the shared matches features to see if your DNA cousins through this ancestor also match each other. And if you have the Pro tool, go ahead and look at the matches segment, sort by that, and see if it's making sense. That's your genetic network. A real connection often appears as a small match cluster that overlaps in the same family line. And I'll show you an example in a minute. Step 2, audit the tree paths. Does the route from you to that common ancestor and from your DNA match to the same person actually make sense? Do the timeline work? A parent can't be born after their child. 2 full siblings born 35 years apart? That's not impossible, but it's not typical either. Geography matters as well. If someone was born in Ireland and supposedly had a child in Indiana in the same year, we need a pause. Did that person ever leave Ireland? Could they have made it to Indiana? If the answer is no, the tree might be wrong. Once the timeline and location pass the sniff test, then look for actual documentation and evidence. You want to verify that the people in the tree really existed, lived where the tree says, and actually belonged in the same place and generation as your matches line. But here's when things get tricky. You'll often hear advice like, look for matches through multiple siblings. The theory is if all of your matches come from just one child of the proposed ancestor, your case is weaker. But if you've got matches from multiple siblings, that's stronger evidence that the ancestor is real. That's great. Unless your family has the small family problem that we've talked about on this channel that plagues my DNA research. If generation after generation only had 1 or 2 kids, there simply may not be any other cousin lines to show up in your ThruLine. If you're adopted or dealing with a non-paternal event or an unexpected parental switch, you might not even know that's what's going on. The lack of multiple sibling lines doesn't always mean the connection is wrong. It might just mean your family didn't leave behind enough DNA breadcrumbs. Step 3, watch for gaps. Sometimes a ThruLine suggestion looks shaky, not because it's false, but because you're missing data. Genetic genealogy isn't evenly adopted across the world. If your relatives come from a region with low DNA testing participation, you may have very few matches to work with. Also consider alternative explanations such as endogamy, adoptions, or misattributed parentage. Step 4. Remember, ThruLines aren't a genetic family tree. They connect user-generated trees, not DNA segments. To really confirm a connection, you'll want to build out a genetic family tree. Firstly, you need to determine if your ancestors are related in multiple ways, sometimes called endogamy or pedigree collapse. Why? Because your matches may appear closer than they really are, thereby confusing ThruLines. The Are My Parents Related tool on GEDmatch can help flag this issue. Depending on the answer, you can then better understand your ThruLine recommendations. So be sure to check out how to use that tool with the tutorial we have linked in the description box. And I know it's not on Ancestry, so if you haven't transferred your DNA over to GEDmatch, do that now. You really need this answer. You'll also want to incorporate the Genetic Affairs Auto tool. Again, transfer your DNA over there and you'll be able to leverage this tool. You can use What Are the Odds? This doesn't require a DNA transfer. If you build out a tree using your known matches, when you have an unknown match, you can predict where they're going to fall on your family tree. And then you want to leverage chromosome browsers. You can access that over on GEDmatch or MyHeritage by transferring your DNA to those platforms. And yes, I'm telling you to move your DNA from Ancestry to something else so you truly can understand your ThruLines. The more evidence you have, the stronger your cases can be, and you can validate those relationships. To learn more about any of these tools, be sure to check the description box. Sometimes ThruLine connections is wrong, and sometimes it's really wrong. Here are the major red flags to watch out for, and yes, a few of these were already mentioned. That's on purpose. Some problems are worth repeating. Small segments are risky for 2 reasons. There are many possible ways you can be related to a match with whom you share 15 centimorgans or less. ThruLines might not map out all those possibilities. Remember, the tree is based on user submissions and involves some guesswork to establish your connection. If you and your DNA match are missing a more likely part of your family tree, Ancestry will choose one when in reality it's the other path. So you'll need to do descendancy research on your 3rd great-grandparents first. Anything further back gets tricky unless you've tested a parent or their sibling. If your small CN matches still line up, you're golden. If not, then you know these matches are either false or matched in some unexpected way. The second reason is that the smaller the shared DNA, the higher the odds it's a false match. These low-level matches often appear in ThruLines, and although they may seem legitimate on paper, they often fall apart under scrutiny. If most of your ThruLine groups share the small amounts of DNA, pause. The next problem is if you see unexpected DNA overlaps between close relatives, like a cousin matching you on both sides of your family tree. It might mean your parents are distant cousins. That throws a wrench into ThruLines, making connections look closer than they really are. As mentioned earlier, use GEDmatch's Are Your Parents Related tool and get the answer. Matches in a valid ThruLines should also match each other. If they don't form a cluster or don't share DNA with each other, that's a warning sign. Of course, if you've got the small family problem, few testers in your line, this might not apply, but it's still something to flag and investigate. When your ThruLines suggestions involve names like Smith or Johnson or ancestors born before 1800, be cautious. These are prime targets for incorrect recommendations. This isn't just a user error, it's an algorithmic one. ThruLines may think similar profiles are one person and feed you a false ancestor. Roberta Estes says ThruLines is a tool, not an answer. Think of ThruLines as a tour guide. They can point out things to investigate and share some insights, but you actually have to investigate the attractions to determine if your tour guide is credible or full of propaganda. If you want to evaluate your ThruLine hints for accuracy, follow your genetic map. It's not just a cute title, it's your guide to using ThruLines the right way. First, build a family tree with biological relationships, but be sure to label biological versus adoptive family lines clearly. Ancestry can't read the mind, and Ancestry did go up my adopted family line initially until I clarified who adopted my relatives and who was biological. Link confirmed DNA matches to your tree. Only add people you verified through genealogical records supported by genetic clustering. Consider using Ancestry's colored dots to track known groups. ThruLine is the last step, not the first. Cluster your shared matches, look for consistent patterns, and identify known relatives to anchor your research. If ThruLine includes someone you've already confirmed, it's more likely to be useful. Unknown matches in those lines are prime targets for follow-up research. Remember, ThruLines is just a hint. Treat each one as a hypothesis. Use traditional genealogical records like census, birth, marriage, death records, and wills. Just because a tree says something doesn't make it true. A ThruLine recommendation is stronger when multiple matches point to the same ancestor. Make sure those matches also share DNA with each other, not just you. If they don't cluster, the ThruLine is on shaky ground. Don't turn a theory into a false fact. Avoid linking unknown matches to your tree until proven. ThruLines is a helpful hint generator, but you must be a detective. Don't take it at face value. Test, verify, and question everything. Remember, DNA doesn't lie, but how we interpret it can. If you've been led astray by ThruLine suggestions, let me know in the comments. I love reading some of these stories. If you want more smart strategies to turn DNA into family history, be sure to subscribe and watch this video for more tips and tricks. Subscribe and join the... No, that's stupid.